Welcome to video 6 of our basic functions module. In this video we're going to talk about conditional execution. So sometimes you want to do one thing if a certain condition holds and something else if the condition doesn't hold. So this is called an if statement, and this is the format of it in R. So it's an if, and you put parentheses, what's the condition? So if this evaluates to be true, then you're going to execute the first set of code that's inside the curly brackets. Else means otherwise, so if it's false, it's going to execute this stuff. So we're going to look for a minute at some code and see what it does, and see if we can figure out what it does. So this function is going to be called hasName. So there I've entered the function into my environment, and now I'm going to look at a couple of different vectors and how that function works on them. So here I've entered two different vectors, x1 and x2. So if I look at x1, it just has those entries, and if I look at x2, it's got, one of them is named, okay? So if I looked at names of x1, I would see that's null. And if I look at names of x2, I get the A and two null entries, null string entries. So I'm going to look at, I'm going to take the names of my input, so in this case x1 or x2, right? And then if this was null, right, if this came back null, I mean there were no names in there, right? So if that's the case, so I do the if conditional. So let's look at is.null names of x1. Right, that's what I've assigned to NMS. Right, that's true, right? Because that came back null. So if that's the case, what I want to do is repeat or replicate the word false. How many times? The length of x1. Right, so what I want it to come back is false, 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 because there are no names there, right? So that would give me the first part of that, right, if it was null. Now x2, if I did the same sort of thing but looked at x2, that's not null, right, because names of x2 was not null. It came back with an A and then two null strings. So let's see what I want to do there. I want to check, I would like it to come back true, false, false, right? Because there was a name in the first place and not in the second and third. So if I did not is.na of, let's see, I haven't assigned it to NMS yet. So let's make it, names of x2. Okay, so that came back true, true, true. But I also want to see if the names of x2 is equal, I'll say not equal to that guy, right? So that's what I want to use. So I will use the combined, it's not NA and it's not that. So when I do that and I run this code, this function on x2, I will get the desired result. And run it on x1, I get the desired result. But you see, I'm just showing you the use of a conditional. Right? You're checking if it's null and doing different things. Okay? So the condition for an if statement has to be a single logical element. It has to be either true or false. It can't be a whole vector of trues and false. So if you're combining them, you want to use a double OR which is, that's the OR symbol, and that's the double OR, which will do a true at the first occurrence, or the double AND, which will do a false at the first occurrence of a false. You can use an any or an all to collapse a logical vector. Another thing that you might want to note, if you're using a numeric value and you want to do something double equals to compare, so if you want to do like 2 is equal to 2, right? That's true. But for numbers, because of round-off error, sometimes you want to use identical or near instead, okay? If, for instance, I look at x, just to give you an example of this, is the square root of 2. And then if I looked at, is 2 equal to the square root of 2 squared, right? That should be the same. It's not. If I look at x squared, it looks like 2, but the round-off error is such that if I do 2, I could see the difference, right? 2 minus x squared. How far apart are they? See, that's not 0. So you have to be careful with the double equals when you're comparing numbers and want to get a logical in response, okay? So you can use near. So if I did near 2 and x squared, then I will in fact get true. Okay, so be careful when you're doing your comparisons with numbers, okay, that you get something that is reasonable. Now, for your exercise for this section, I want you to write a function that prints the words input must be numeric if the function input is not numeric, and otherwise it returns 2 times the number. Okay, so this is a chance for you to try out using a simple conditional. So you're going to test it with a numeric input and a non-numeric input. So maybe send in the letter A or send in something that's not numeric, okay, to test it out, that it prints out input must be numeric. And send in a number. Try both a positive number, a negative number, so forth, to test out your numeric. Come back and we'll look at video 7.